Bob Deering has been active in Rotary for over 35 years, serving in almost every job at the club level, and has been active at the district level for over 15 years, serving as district governor in 2012 to 2013, and was DRFC from 2015 to 2018. Because of the work in many areas, he received both the citation for meritorious service from the Rotary Foundation and the Service Above Self Award from Rotary International. Currently, he is serving as the district treasurer for District 5180 and is a member of that district's board of directors. Dr. Brian Gladden is the founder and CEO of the Strategy and Innovation Institute, a management consulting firm that helps firms find unmet demand and create new market spaces. He is also the co-creator of the largest human trafficking prevention grant in Rotary history, which became the largest collaborative effort to fight human trafficking in the history of the Sacramento region. He has been in Rotary for over 38 years, past Rotary AG, Rotary Club president, Rotaract president, Interact district governor, Paul Harris +8 award, meaning he's gotten it 8 years in a row, or for 8 years for those who don't know that. Bequest Society, Rotary Foundation alum, Rotary International Ambassadorial Scholarship in 1989, Rotary International Changemaker Award in 2012, and District 5180 Be the Inspiration Award in 2019. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Michelle, very much for allowing us to be here. It's kind of deja vu to me. You probably don't know it, but I was there when you chartered a few years ago. I was very inspired by what you were doing. We're going to start our presentation. We're going to start our presentation kind of from the back end. We're going to show a video that we produced after we had gotten the program together, and then we'll kind of go through the step-by-step how we put this together. So Brian, go ahead and start the video.
At its core, human trafficking is exploitation and the deprivation of personal liberty.
Worldwide, human trafficking is you're talking about billions of dollars.
This is a $20 billion global business, and a lot of that business is driven in the U.S.
It can happen anywhere, and again, they prey on people's vulnerabilities.
And everybody out there either has kids, grandkids, friends of friends that have girls, which is the majority, in this target age.
It can happen in big cities, it can happen in small towns, it can happen in rural areas too.
So we have to do something about it. We've got to continue to educate, help them make safer choices so they can defend themselves.
Education of the community is important because there's so many people that think of human trafficking as just being this distant issue that happens in some third world country, and they'll ship these foreigners in.
Raising awareness can help in a lot of ways.
The target age for human trafficking in the U.S. is 11 to 14-year-old girls. That's exactly the age of my girls when we started this.
Whether it be teachers, parents, community members, know what signs are and what to look for, and what makes some of these young girls vulnerable, then they can help that way, either by calling the police or helping directly to the young women.
But the most important tool that we have to combat human trafficking is prevention through education, and that's why it's so important to make sure we are arming young people with the tools to protect themselves and to protect each other.
The public awareness campaign was 3 months, and our partner, the Voices and Faces Project in Chicago, created an in-your-face ad campaign called The Ugly Truth. Street art, buses, light rail, gas stations.
They were open to the idea that this shouldn't be one thing. You know, it shouldn't just be education. It shouldn't just be advocacy. It shouldn't just be community outreach. It shouldn't just be a media campaign. That it needed to be this multifaceted effort.
Prevention through education is the gap that they said Rotary could fill. We need prevention starting at a young age in our classrooms, to our kids, to our teachers, and we need to educate the public at large of really what does trafficking look like in the U.S. especially, and what can they do about it.
So Three Strands Global Foundation in 2014 joined forces with Love Never Fails and Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives, and we created PROTECT, Prevention Organized to Educate Children on Trafficking.
As a teacher, the Protect curriculum it's one of the most awe-inspiring lessons when you watch your own class and then the students that you don't know. There is an attention that you don't have on an everyday basis with a room full of adolescents.
The idea was to holistically create a program that would be a continuum of care, from protocols and making sure that teachers and administrators and nurses would know what to do if they actually identified a victim of human trafficking, all the way to training the educators and educational staff, the curriculum for students, and then data.
What was exciting about this project with Rotary is that they and we came together and identified people doing really extraordinary work around this issue.
We thought elementary school is really the place, right? We want to make sure, knowing statistics, knowing when kids are accessed online and have their first phone or iPad, we wanted to make sure that we get before that.
The kids in the classroom, that's what we're all here for. That's what we do. So there is this silence that's in the room, and all eyes are fixated on what's the next thing you're going to tell them, what's the next fact. It's a really moving curriculum.
We have educated over 32,000 students in just the past year and taught over 800 teachers in just the past year. That number will double in the next school year.
I would encourage every Rotary community to adopt the same process that the Sacramento Rotarian community did.
For Rotary to really make a difference, we need other clubs and other regions to say, I want this program, and I'm willing to step up and be a partner on it.
I really think that Rotarians, because they are leaders of the community, have the ability to really set the stage for movements in every community they're in. If we can really work on empowering young people to believe in themselves and believe that they have dreams that go beyond anything that would ever have to do with trafficking or a trafficker, that's really, in my opinion, the way to end human trafficking.
I want to step back now, and I want to go to 2015. I had ended my year as district governor. I was now the district Rotary Foundation chair. Brian and I had been talking a couple of years about trying to put together a project where we could bring global grant money into the Sacramento area. And I'll have to be very honest with you. What we were talking about was not doing something on human trafficking. We just wanted to do something that we could bring global grant money into our district, show our Rotarians that the money can come back to our community, and we can do something. We can do some good with the global grant money. January 2016, I went to a peace conference in Ontario, California, and I happened to be sitting at dinner with a couple of friends of mine on a Friday night dinner, and a gentleman sat down next to me. His name was Basil Baz. Basil was an interesting gentleman, but Basil also was a CIA agent in his former life. And for the next 2.5 hours, he regaled me with his stories about the things he did around the world. But one of them really hit home, and that one really hit home was he was in Libya with his associate, and he ran across two young ladies. These two young ladies were not Libyans. These two young ladies were Americans. They had been taken from their home. They had been taken over to Libya, and they were being trafficked over there. Make a long story short, Basil and an associate got them out of there, got them home. And he decided that when he retired from the CIA, his job would be to help other people get out of this horrific situation. I came back to Brian after this peace conference. I said, I think I found something. I went to a couple classes. I learned more about it. And I said, this is right here in our own backyard. We don't know what's in our own backyard. And we talked about that. You saw that in the video. But there's something we can do. And so all of a sudden we said, okay, let's start. We're going to create a global grant on human trafficking. Boom. Now what do we do? Well, I'm going to turn it over to Brian now and let Brian kind of go take you through the steps of the things, what we did from January 2016 to the present. So Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Thanks everybody for having us, and some familiar faces, Mr. Dave. So yeah, Bob came to me and we've been wanting to do something big. My goal was I wanted to do something massive project in the Sacramento region to spotlight some global issue, but here at home. And he told me, you know, human trafficking. And I looked at him like deer in the headlights, like, okay, I'm against it. That's about all I know. What do we do? So the first thing we did was we went into the community, to the experts, to gather insights. What is this problem, right? And we're preaching to the choir on some of this, but we had to get educated on what is human trafficking, first of all, without putting our assumptions on it to try and create a solution first. We had to gather insights. You know, it's the fastest growing criminal activity, and 41 million people enslaved, and sex and labor, all these things that we had to get educated on. And some of the biggest ones were at the end when they said, you know, Sacramento is one of the hotbeds because you're in a central location in California, I-5, 99, I-80, you know, get anywhere quickly. And so we were shocked, you know, taken back, like, wow, okay, I didn't know it was this big of an issue, that it was this big here locally at home in our own backyard. So the first thing we did was got educated by these experts, but tried to get in touch with the entire ecosystem to gather all of the data on what are the problems and how can Rotary be engaged to help fill the gaps. And what we were told basically is, you know, there's an increase, as you guys know, with Polaris data every year, and it's getting worse. And there's a lot of great victim services in every community that are doing a lot of the work to help with the girls physically, psychologically, usually girls, men as well, boys. There's also legal and law enforcement things going on, but there's very little in the prevention of trafficking, especially through education. And they said that's really where Rotary can help, is that prevention piece. So we said, okay. So then we started talking to folks who were in this world of prevention. What does the education look like? What do we need to do? How do we educate people? Who do we educate? What do we tell them? And we really met some great folks that were already doing work in this space around prevention through education. And what they told us that then we relayed to the rest of our districts and clubs was, it doesn't look like you think it looks. It's not the Liam Neeson movie, usually, you know, Taken, where people are taken away. Yeah, it happens, but it's changed, right? It's morphed. The business model has changed, what it looks like. And usually now it is the 12 to 14-year-old girl, in most cases, the vast majority in the US, sex trafficking that we were focused on, a lot of labor as well. But they said, this is what happens. Here are the scenarios that play out, and here's how people get taken into it and become vulnerable. And the teachers and the parents have no idea what to look for. And so I was shocked because I had girls 11 to 14 in this age range and had no clue that these apps, these techniques, these things are happening, that in every school just about, that a friend of a friend could be being groomed or taken advantage of. So we were obviously fired up at this point, and we gathered the ecosystem in the entire greater Sacramento all the way to the Bay Area region, from law enforcement to city, county, and state stakeholders, victim services, PR, advertising folks, digital media folks, everybody that was touched or working in this space. And we told them, here's what we're trying to do. Is the messaging right? Is this where we fit? We're trying to bring, as Rotary does, we're the glue, right? We bring people together and we get money to, instead of actually creating the content, we find those experts. And it was a great dialogue. We had kind of had this kickoff, and they told us, you know, this is what we'd like to see from this group or this group. And what came of it was the grant that, you know, we call it this reverse grant, which we all know doesn't technically exist, but it makes it a little bit easier in your mind to get your head around the money's coming back to the US. So in 2017, this got approved, and what it was in this human trafficking project, as you already said, it's the largest trafficking grant that Rotary has done, especially in the U.S., the largest international grant and the largest trafficking initiative in SAC history. But it was a $213,000 grant. We had an additional $170,000 funding that wasn't met because it didn't meet the international match, but a $383,000 total value of it. When we think about that in terms of Rotary money, we all know that we get stuff given to us or at a discount, or hey, we'll do that for because it's Rotary. It was about a street value of $2 million grant of all the things that came into it. And what this consisted of was two main initiatives: the education to teachers and students. And we found a group, actually it was in our own backyard here in Sacramento region, called Three Strands Global, who you saw actually on the video. And we put $230,000 towards it. The second was a public awareness campaign, which was a group called the Voices and Faces out of Chicago. And the campaign was called The Ugly Truth, and that was $150,000. The thought here and the goal of talking to everybody was the majority and the focus should be on educating kids in elementary and high school of the signs to look for, whether themselves or friends, that they're being targeted, they're being groomed, how to make safe choices to stay out of it and understand, what scenarios look like. And then the teachers. In many states, especially California where it started, teachers by law have to identify and say something if they see a sign of trafficking. And now in most states, they actually have to have 2 hours of training on signs to look for. But as we all know, teachers have so much, they're not experts, so they have no idea what a sign of trafficking is, what to see, what do I look for, who do I tell, what do I say, how do I engage the student, kind of trauma informed. So we found these 2 groups and got it approved. So what came after that, we'll talk about the first piece here, the public awareness campaign. We designed a 3-month public awareness campaign called The Ugly Truth. And this had been done in 4 cities before this, but not with Rotary. San Francisco, San Diego, DC, and Chicago. And the Voices Faces basically created ads that were in your face and told this ugly truth, but then also, or the myth, but then the ugly truth. And so when you see in the black is the myth, right? If a woman chooses to sell her body, that's her business. It's the girlfriend experience. And then in the white, you see the ugly truth. Prostitution's rarely a choice. It's dangerous. All of these things that we know are the truth. And then we put the Rotary logo there in the bottom right corner, which hadn't been done before, with just the number to call for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. This went everywhere for 3 months. As you can see, buses, street art, which is, bus station benches, things like that, light rail, billboards along the highways, both digital and, regular. This was on the major corridors in Sacramento. And we also did this specifically during time of July to September because we wanted to catch the state fair. We wanted to catch lots of people going up to the mountains to Tahoe or to San Francisco. And we had a significant impression, if you know it, the advertising space, which we'll talk about in the outcomes in just a minute. The second piece was prevention through education. This was even the bigger piece, and this is the most sustainable ongoing. Three Strands Global was actually doing this work already. We were brought to the attention of them. We were introduced, sat down and found out that they were doing this all over California already. And actually probably the longest running program to educate kids and teachers on trafficking in the country. And they were actually part of the White House committee to fight trafficking. But what they did, what was really unique and what we loved, is we wanted to get to the root cause. And so they create a holistic approach, as Ashley said, to ending or actually preventing trafficking, which is from the school district, administration, superintendent, law enforcement, all the way down to the teacher. There's protocols put in place. What happens if this happens? Who do you talk to? Then the training, which is where we come in, trauma-informed reporting, because now teachers by law are that trusted advisor. They have to report what they see. and then teach the students and the parents in the communities. And how they do this is through a continuum of curriculum that spans from 5th grade all the way through to juniors in high school. And it's very different. They don't talk about the terms human trafficking, things like that. When you're in the 5th grade, it's more about safe choices, safe places. 7th grade is more about your body, changes you're going through, again, safe choices. But then when you get into high school, 9th grade, it's a little bit more in your face, understanding what human trafficking is, how you're being targeted now, especially with apps and data and technology, and then linking it to historical slavery, that it's modern day slavery in juniors in high school. So it's a full circle. It's really impactful. And what we did there was, it's a train the trainer. You don't want to go in and train and then leave and it's just a checkbox. You want to train the teacher through the curriculum, so now they're the expert, that they can then have those conversations with the students and the parents. They can identify, they can be trauma informed, they can talk to the student who maybe is self-identifying. They can talk to law enforcement, to the nurses, and they're the ones who are there every day as the trusted advisor that the kids need to know, understand it. So then we got the message out. We wanted to tell the world, tell the Sacramento region, the public, this is what we're doing. So we did 2 press releases, one from us, the Rotary District, that this is what we're doing, but more importantly, the DA. So you saw Paul Durenberger there. He's assistant DA, retired, but the DA, Anne Marie Schubert, issued a press release for us, partnering with us, saying how great it was, which was awesome. So all the news media has picked it up. We then did this, as I talked about before, a kind of ecosystem kickoff where we got all these stakeholders together and showed them what we were doing, got feedback, evolved it, edited it before it went live. And then we did a press event at the steps of the state capitol in California, in Sacramento. And we had the chief of police, the sheriff, we had legislation, assemblyman, the DA, our partners, and then there's Bob and I speaking to the press. We had about a dozen people there. We also trained Rotarians. So we had free trainings in the district several times. We always got in touch with Dave and Rags and got hopefully a bigger piece of education from what Rotary is doing globally and nationally, but gave district training so people could be informed. And we had probably 40 people sign up on the committee at one point to say, I'm interested, I really want to help, just plug me in wherever I can help. So what were the big outcomes? We still have global inquiries today, which Bob will talk about. Nonprofit relationships were formed that could be used to be sustainable, which he'll talk about. Community relationships formed, again, nonprofits, the people in city and county government, all those people are still in places of power that now relationships can be formed by individual clubs. We had an 80% increase in teacher-student knowledge. There's pre and post surveys that the kids and teachers do. Do you know what trafficking is? How you scenarios, and significant increase. We also had comments like this: best training we ever had, and this was actually my kids' school. I made sure that was a must, that it went there. It was a strong arm, and it worked. And so the teachers, they were like, wow, this is awesome. This is, you come in, you give me something, I deliver it, but then it goes away. And on almost every single school in our district, in the region, we had students self-identifying, and this was amazing. I was shocked, and even before trainings were delivered, in some of the just kickoffs where we had Q&A sessions, kids would come afterwards and self-identify. To date, we've had, well, during the 3-month public awareness campaign, and that was in 2018, we had 78 million impressions, which is eyeballs that see an advertisement, which is a lot. 681 parents have been trained in the different schools and the districts in the region. 2,140 teachers trained, and this is the sustainable piece, right? Now they're the expert. Every year they can teach this over and over. To date, from 18 till now, we have 56,965 students have been trained through this program for whatever school said, yes, I want this, come in. This is a significant dent in educating our students, our public, our teachers, to create a sustainable environment to help prevent human trafficking. I'm going to turn it over to Bob for sustainability.
Okay, Brian, yeah, go on to the next slide, and what we're trying to do is our grant is closed now. I just issued the last check to Three Strands Global about 3 months ago. So theoretically, we're out of the story, but we do want to keep this going. We have talked to our clubs, and that's what Brian and my job right now is doing, is to go out and talk to our clubs and try to get them to keep this job going. One of the big things we want to do is adopt a school. If you have a school in your area that your kids are going to and whatever, make that your choice and keep this program going into your school. You can do that through a district grant. The way we do our district grants in our area is clubs each year can develop a district grant. They're giving up to $5,000 as long as their club puts like-kind money in. So there are funds available to do these types of projects. If you are not involved into what we did through the education process, work with another nonprofit. We have over 50 nonprofits in the greater Sacramento area that are working in the human trafficking area. Example is my club during COVID. There was a nonprofit that they went out and they number one housed a number of women who have been taken out of trafficking, but they need food. And so because we were not meeting live, we engaged our caterer to do twice a week, do meals, and what we paid for meals, what we normally would pay for meals during our meetings, we put that money into meals, and we took it out to this organization. We heard earlier about Rotaract and Interact clubs. This is great leverage. That once you get the kids involved, it can go anywhere. One of our clubs, the Laguna Sunrise Club, took some global grant money, and they basically did a mini campaign in the city of Elk Grove. Elk Grove is one of the largest areas in the greater Sacramento area, and they did a mini one. They did street art. They did signs at the high school, junior high school, and great impact on their community. And we also Ragus has become a big supporter of what we did, and we're a big supporter of Ragus. So we're trying to use the Ragus services going forward. Next slide, Brian. What are Brian and I doing now? The grant's done. We're trying to do a number of things to keep this in front of our clubs, our Rotarians, and whatever. What we want to do is make sure we got the focus on human trafficking in our communities. If we're not in front of our Rotarians, all of a sudden they go off into other areas. So we are really working, and we're doing speeches. Brian's a board member of an organization now that is helping victims of domestic violence. He's that was a highlight of what we've been doing. We developed a lot of relationships throughout the world. I see people online that I know. Jerry and Nelson and I, we go back a number of years because we did a scholarship together for a young lady back when it was an ambassadorial scholarship, and that's where I first met Jerry. And all of a sudden, we've been talking about projects back and forth a little bit here and there. Dave McCleary is a big supporter of what we do, and he knows I'm a big supporter of his, and we go there. I'm one of the 3 ambassadors for Ragus in the California, Nevada area. I have been giving speeches. Brian's been working with me on that. We seem to go district by district by district that we give this presentation. What you saw today was the presentation that we do to various clubs throughout the greater Sacramento area or great Northern California, or whoever asks it. I've been over to Nevada. I've been up into Washington to give these presentations. And I also was on the Ragus task force, task force over the last 3 or 4 years. We've got to know the number of people in Ragus. They've decided that education was going to be a major part of what they do with this organization. And over the last 6 months or so, Dave, about 6 months or so, we've developed a curriculum, or not a curriculum, but a plan for how to educate not only the people in the United States, but throughout the world. And we're developing that as we go along. And I was very privileged to be a part of that. You heard about Virginia and her club. Virginia is somebody I've known for a good year now. We're starting to talk, and I've talked with Brian here just recently. I talked with Ashley Bryant. Well, Ashley Bryant was not a Rotarian when we started our program. She now is a Rotarian in one of our clubs, and we are in conversation about developing our own club in District 5180 to combat human trafficking. And you know, we talked a little bit of this before we started. Ashley and I had this conversation. He says, you know, I've talked to Karen a little bit about being a part of your club, and she said, and I said, what do you think? And I said, well, my thought about this is, if you want to really work on the big issues and whatever, I think the District 5950 club it would be the place to be. If we want to focus directly on 5180 issues, I think, you know, maybe this would be a good thing. You know, we started with 40 people that were part of our committee. This could be a hub of developing our own club. We could be bringing in, you know, the district attorney, somebody from the district attorney's office. We could be bringing in all of the various nonprofits in the area, and develop a cohesiveness that we when we started this, we never saw the cohesiveness. They were all fighting for the same dollars, and they weren't talking to each other. We could be the central point to make this work. Again, we've been giving speeches throughout the United States, and probably the thing I'm most proud of is there are 3 districts, District 5300 in the Riverside, San Bernardino area, District 5340 in the San Diego area, and then the Rotary Club of Columbia Center in District 5080, which is in Washington. All 3 of them have either started or are replicating the project that we did. That, you know, that makes me feel that, my gosh, we made a difference. It's not just now in Sacramento. It's starting to spread throughout. So I'm really proud of what we did. I'm proud of how we did it, and I thank Brian for his dream. Brian is one of the most creative Rotarians, and when he said he's been in Rotary for 38 years, that starts at Interact and goes on up through. He's a Rotarian at heart, and I really appreciate him and what he does for Rotary in our district and throughout the world. So thank you all very much. We ran through this fairly quickly, but we're more than happy to answer questions if there's questions.
Thank you, both of you. So this is Karen and Bob. As you were talking about Ashley joining your club, I'm already creating my campaign for why she should join our club and help us build.
You know, there's people who they have an issue that they want to work with, and all the people on this meeting, human trafficking is that issue. And I think if we were to Rotary can be the central focus to get all of these people together, and we can make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, I am convinced that if the world is serious about ending human trafficking, Rotary is uniquely positioned to be able to be that lead organization, as no other organization is. So it's going to take a while. You know, it'll take a few years, but I keep looking at eradicating polio as our North Star, to say, hey, it's taken 40 plus years to eradicate polio, and that's pretty simple, or at least straightforward. You know, one cause, one solution. This is much more insidious and nefarious, but got to start someplace. So I loved your quote at the beginning of the presentation about, can't do a whole lot, but we can take one step at a time. So thank you. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Brian, both for the great work that you've done, as well as the great role model and template that you've created, and then for giving us that presentation day and inspiring us. Incredibly inspiring presentation. We're excited to hopefully continue to work with you and learn from what you did so that we can replicate that and expand it.